Welcome to the Hedgewitch Herbarium podcast. I'm Kelly Proudfoot, and in this episode I'll be sharing information about a garden of dreams. I wrote an extensive post about dreams on my website, Hedgewitch Herbarium, which you can see in the notes, which includes a variety of components such as dream symbols, archetypes, Jung's idea of individuation, ritual, and so on. But in this series, I'm focusing on a group of my favourite herbs related to the dream world, along with creating a dream garden, dream incubation, dream plant profiles, and dream deities. While trying to keep the mood whimsical, I want to share how important studying your dreams can be for understanding yourself, your life, and others. This series is for everyone, even if you're not inclined to practice ritual or Wicca. The mythological aspects of dreams cross over to the plant kingdom, and while I won't be talking about all the herbs deemed to enhance or invoke dreams, I've chosen 12 that I've used in my own dream rituals, and most can be grown in the garden. Of course, it's up to you which plants you choose to include in your own dream garden, so this episode is mostly for informational purposes and inspiration. This also covers short plant profiles, creating a dream garden, and a suggested plant map. I'm going to post a link in the notes where you can see what the zones are, the growing zones in your area. That's in the US, of course, but you can always search yourself if you are from somewhere else. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'm going to start with dream herbs and plants, from the well-known to the more obscure that might not be considered as dream herbs and plants. The following 12 specimens will get you started on your journey of discovering how to plan your dream garden and hopefully inspire you to create your own dream pillows, spells, and nocturnal crafts. So we're going to start with jasmine, and the Latin or scientific name is Jasminum officinale, and the folk names Moonlight on the Grove, Jessamine or Yasmin. Growing conditions: full sun to part shade in zones 7 to 10 in the US. Jasmine is a climber on trees, walls, trellises, and so on, and needs good drainage, high humidity to bloom, and it attracts hummingbirds and butterflies. Jasmine is a well-loved herb or flower around the world for its intense fragrance in summer, and the essential oil is used in aromatherapy for lowering anxiety, improving sleep quality, and alternatively for increasing alertness during the day. The sweet, heavy scent is released at dusk with soothing and calming effects. As a medicine, jasmine can be used for its anti-inflammatory and antiseptic properties with skin conditions, although those with allergies might have a sensitivity to it. The magical properties of jasmine include prophetic dreams and attracting spiritual love or a soulmate. The next plant or herb, or it is a herb, is mugwort, and its Latin or scientific name is Artemisia vulgaris. Folk names: Artemisia, muggins, or sailor's tobacco. Growing conditions: full sun to part shade in zones 3 to 9. Mugwort isn't too fussy about the soil it grows in, and it self-sows vigorously, so be careful where you plant it if you don't want it to spread. It can be used as a hedge and grows up to around 4 feet tall. Originally used to flavour beer before hops was used, mugwort was also used to repel insects, specifically moths, and as an insecticidal to kill larvae, if you like to say it that way. The oil contains thujone, that's Thujone, so it shouldn't be taken in large doses or over a long period of time. Used medicinally to reduce sleepiness and as a blood cleanser, mugwort is a favourite witch's herb, and it was used in the Middle Ages for protection, especially against evil spirits. In magic, its powers include dream incubation, increasing psychic powers, and astral projection. The next herb is skullcap, which is one of my favourites. I have it growing in my garden along with mugwort and jasmine and others. And the Latin or scientific name is Scutellaria lateriflora. Folk names: Quaker bonnet, madweed, blue pimpernel. Growing conditions: full sun to part shade in zones 3 to 8. Skullcap likes to have wet feet, needs moist, rich soil, and the seeds can either be direct sown after the last frost or moist stratified for 60 days and started indoors. Stratifying means it's sort of like mimicking nature during the winter. So what you're doing is you're putting the seeds in, it could be sand or soil as long as it's, good quality. And you put it in the refrigerator for 60 days, and sometimes you can see them growing when you take it out of the fridge. And it's a good idea when you're stratifying seeds this way to maybe once a week at least take them out and just open the bag up and allow it to get some air before putting it back in the fridge. Skullcap can also be grown by division, which means in the late fall or early spring, digging it up and dividing the roots so you can create more plants, or with cuttings, which you can take again in the fall. If you haven't done cuttings before, it's basically just taking a sprig and I just put them in water and on the windowsill and let it start producing roots. The nice thing about skullcap, it's one of the plants that attracts bees, and if you're one of the people like me who is really passionate about making sure we have bees, because if we don't have bees, we don't exist, so that would be a good herb to grow in the garden. And like I said, skullcap likes growing in wet conditions like marshes and near riverbeds. It's used by Native American tribes such as the Cherokee and Iroquois people. This herb has helped with a wide variety of ailments for over 200 years, including anxiety, insomnia, convulsions, diarrhea, and slow menstruation. Also containing pain-relieving and anti-inflammatory properties, skullcap was used by the Cherokee people in rituals for young girls crossing over into womanhood. Other magical uses include invoking dreams, peaceful sleep, ancestor worship, and meditation. The next plant we're going to talk about is lavender. And it's a beautiful plant. Everybody loves, most people love lavender. Its scientific or Latin name is Lavandula angustifolia. An interesting thing about lavender is the scent was, or the perfume was used to attract customers to the prostitutes in Paris in years gone by. If you could smell the lavender, you knew that you were going to get lucky. The folk names for lavender include elf leaf, spike, and English lavender. Growing conditions: it needs full sun in zones 5 to 10, and it needs dry, well-drained soil, much like rosemary, and the seeds need to be scarified before sown indoors in wet sand, keeping them cool and moist until germination, which occurs in about 4 to 6 weeks. Scarification of seeds is merely rubbing them between some sandpaper. It's about getting through the hard shell of the seed so that they can sprout. And so after you scarify the seeds, of course, you keep them in the moist soil or sand in a bag in the fridge. And like I mentioned before, every so often, at least once a week, open them up and let some air in. So this intensely aromatic shrub attracts bees and butterflies, so it's another worthy addition to the garden. Commonly grown as an ornamental, lavender flowers and leaves are used medicinally for relieving insomnia, depression and anxiety. And some people say, at least when it comes to folklore, that even just sitting there and meditating while you look at the plant is supposed to lift heavy thoughts and feelings. Also used for culinary purposes, which might sound odd to some people, but lavender is an ingredient in herbes de Provence, which is an herbal blend in French cuisine. I remember when I first tasted lavender, it was in an ice cream. I thought it was going to be disgusting, but it was actually quite lovely. And because it's intense, if you are going to use it in cooking or make a cordial or something like that, then you would need to be pretty sparing. Otherwise, it could end up tasting quite, not so much like chemicals, but really strong. The essential oil is included in blends used for massage therapy, perfumes and soaps. The dried herbs and or the oil repels moths when hung in closets to protect clothing. And lavender's magical applications include peaceful dreams, happiness and spiritual awareness. Mimosa, the tree that has those beautiful pink fluffy puffball kind of flowers, which some people here in the South, in America at least, think of as an intrusion or a plant that spreads and is quite a nuisance for some people, but it's so great when it comes to the medicine. The Latin or scientific name for mimosa is Albizia julibrissin, and the folk names include sleeping grass, sensitive tree, and Persian silk tree. The growing conditions: it needs part shade to full sun in zones 6 to 11, and as I said before, mimosa can be invasive and it needs well-drained soil. The seeds need to be scarified, as mentioned before, and covered with boiling water, then left for 24 hours to soak before sowing indoors or directly in the garden. It has a poor germination rate and takes 3 to 4 years to bloom, but when it does, it attracts birds, bees and butterflies. After periods of rain and at night, the leaves close slowly, which gives mimosa the Persian name night sleeper. Most used as an ornamental plant due to the pretty frond-like leaves and the colours of the flowers, which range from pink to rich red. Mimosa leaves are highly effective when rubbed on rashes caused by stinging nettle. While mimosa has a wide range of medicinal applications for issues such as anxiety, depression and insomnia, the seeds and pods are poisonous. The magical properties of mimosa include invoking prophetic dreams, peace, healing, and purification. And just to note, if you were going to make a tea or a tincture with mimosa, you would just be using the flowers. So now we're going to move on to nutmeg, and that scientific and or Latin name is Myristica fragrans. The folk names include Sadhika, Bishopswort and Jaifal. Growing conditions: full sun to part shade in zones 10 to 11. Nutmeg likes humid and damp conditions along with deep, rich soil. The tree needs to be protected against gusty winds in well-drained soils, and nutmeg is only grown from fresh seeds. It attracts bees, birds and butterflies. Nutmegs start their journey as a seed, then a tree, followed by growing inside a fruit while being cloaked in a red aril that is called mace, which is also used as a spice in cooking. And then it finally emerges as a grown seed to be used in culinary, cosmetic and medicinal applications. Nutmeg also has a terrible history of wars waged to control its production. And along with healing issues such as arthritis, insomnia, depression, nausea, and toothache, one grinded nutmeg can induce hallucinations, but it's also poisonous in large quantities, which hopefully would deter anybody from trying it for those reasons. I remember my mother telling me a story about a co-worker she had who would gnaw on the nutmegs throughout the day, and she was a little bit wishy-washy and off with the fairies, but I have also heard that if you eat 2 nutmegs in one go, you can die. But the interesting thing with nutmeg, of course, many of you might remember when you were children, or still do it now, where you grate some nutmeg on some warm milk at night to help you go to sleep. The magical powers of nutmeg include sleep, of course, dreams, luck, and fertility. And now we're going to go on to poppy. And this is the opium poppy that a lot of people know about. The Latin or scientific name is Papaver somniferum. So the folk names include opium poppy or breadseed poppy or common poppy. And just to note, the growing conditions I'm sharing here are regarding the California poppy. Of course, that's a different species. Well, not species. It's a different type of poppy. Its Latin name is Eschscholzia californica, since the growing of opium poppy is heavily regulated due to the fact that it's used in the production of opium and heroin. While it's legal to grow opium poppy in the US, the manufacturing of opium is illegal. Folk names for California poppy include golden poppy, flame flower, and cup of gold. The growing conditions for California poppy: full sun in all zones for annuals, and that means if you don't mind just growing it for 1 year and then replanting again the following year. If you want to have it so that it pops up every year, you'd need to be living in zones 8 and above for perennials. The poppies need well-drained soil, and the seeds are direct sown in cold soil late fall to early spring. They germinate in 2 to 3 weeks if sown in the spring, and they can become invasive. They don't transplant well, but they attract butterflies and bees. The opium poppy is commercially grown on a large scale for medicine, as I mentioned before, opium for codeine, morphine, etc., and for the seeds on baked goods and other culinary purposes. Also used as an ornamental plant, the use of opium poppies as a drug precedes recorded history, and it was cultivated by the ancient Minoans. Used for a variety of medicinal purposes such as pain relief, depression, anxiety, and insomnia, poppies are magically utilized for their powers of dream incubation, soothing grief, and peaceful sleep, as well as love and fertility. So when you're doing rituals, or if you're going to create a tea, of course you'll need to be going for the California poppy. You can buy that readily from places like Mountain Rose Herbs, which I've included in the notes of the previous episode. The next herb we're going to look at is one of my favourites, cinquefoil. The Latin name or scientific name is Potentilla canadensis. The folk names, it's well known as 5-finger grass, or crampweed, or goosegrass. The growing conditions: full sun to part shade in zones 4 to 9. The appearance of cinquefoil usually denotes poor or disrupted soil, and while it can grow in most soils, it prefers acidic and dry conditions. Also called dwarf cinquefoil, the seeds can be directly sown in the early fall to early spring in sandy soil. It attracts birds, bees, butterflies, rabbits, and groundhogs. Native American tribes such as the Iroquois used an infusion of the pounded roots for diarrhea, and the Natchez tribe used the plant when they thought they'd been bewitched. Other medicinal uses include treating seizures, diabetes, toothache, pain relief, and for its anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. The folk name five-finger grass is related to the powers of money, health, power, wisdom, and love. Other magical properties include prophetic dreams, purification, exorcism, and protection, while some use it for sleep, communication, and justice. The next plant we're going to talk about is hops, which you might mostly know is an inclusion in beer. The scientific or Latin name is Humulus lupulus. It's really difficult to say, especially if you're going to say it over and over. Humulus lupulus. That's the Latin or scientific name for hops. The folk names include beer flower, common hops, or Flores de Cerveza. And you might remember that name from a beer. The growing conditions include part shade to full sun in zones 5 to 7. Hops grow as a perennial climber and tolerate sandy, loamy and clay soils that are dry or moist. Propagation is usually from root cuttings, since growing from seeds result in mostly male plants, and hops require both male and female specimens if the seeds need to be collected. Found growing in hedgerows, waste grounds and woodlands, the plants are pollinated by the wind. Care is needed when handling hops though, since some have reported contact dermatitis, and the hairs dislodged from the plant can cause eye irritation. Most famously known for flavouring beer, hops have been used medicinally for soothing anxiety, although some say that the sedative effects can make depression worse. Maybe it just depends on the person. Also used to treat stomach problems as a diuretic and for insomnia, the magical properties include healing and bringing on sleep. The next plant we're talking about, of course, is passion flower, another favourite. Passion flower, of course, brings forward that beautiful fruit, the passion fruit, but the flowers are incredible. So beautiful, and the scientific or Latin name is Passiflora incarnata. Folk names: maypop, passion vine or grandilla. Growing conditions: full sun in zones 7 to 11. Passion flower is an evergreen climber that prefers moist but well-drained soil. It's a hermaphrodite and pollinated by bees and resistant to diseases and pests. Propagation is done by pre-soaking the seeds in warm water for 12 hours and sown inside or in a warm greenhouse in the late winter or early spring. Passionflower seeds will germinate from 1 month up to a year at 68 degrees Fahrenheit or higher. Then they can be transplanted the next spring after the last frosts. It's attractive to bees and butterflies and used to alleviate anxiety, insomnia, depression, spasms, and it also reduces blood pressure. The fruits are popular as flavourings, as I mentioned before, and in desserts, but one of the alkaloids in the plant, called harmine, Harmine, was used by the Germans as a truth serum in World War II, and it had been used in traditional German folk medicine for a long time. The magical properties of passion flower include a peaceful sleep and drawing friendships closer. The next one is going to be hard to grow because it's so fussy, but it's sandalwood. Of course, sandalwood is well loved, not just by the hippies, but it's just a beautiful scent, very spiritual. The scientific or Latin name is Santalum album. Folk names: sandal, Indian sandalwood, or white Saunders. Growing conditions: full sun in dry tropical regions. It's almost too difficult to grow in regular gardens, And sandalwood can be bought online, but if you think you have the conditions to grow it, you'll need to soak the seeds in gibberellic acid and plant them in early summer near plants like acacia, since sandalwood is a hemiparasite needing host plants to feed from within 6 feet. Sandalwood, of course, is best purchased, but they say that it's on the decline, not so much endangered, but in Australia there is a farm, bigger than a farm, but they grow sandalwood, but it's just so painstaking to grow. Along with being a sedative, sandalwood has antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties, and some say that it's an aphrodisiac and a diuretic, among other medicinal uses. It's sacred in some religions, and this plant has been noted in Indian literature for over 2,000 years. It's also been traced back to ancient Egypt, and the wood has been used to build temples, although, as I mentioned recently, the threat of extinction has brought about many strict regulations, with crops grown in India as well as Australia. Sandalwood has high spiritual vibrations and powers of peace, meditation, and astral travel, along with drawing down the moon rituals. And we're going to be talking now about, I think it's my favourite, I'm still trying to figure out, I have a great big valerian patch and it's just a gorgeous plant. Cats love it even more than catnip. Valerian is used often in sleeping mixtures, and you'll see in a lot of health food stores they've got the capsules. It's actually quite strong. When I even just sprinkle some valerian on the floor, the cats go insane, like they've just had acid or something. It's really interesting, even more so than the catnip. The scientific or Latin name for valerian is Valeriana officinalis, and the folk names include moonroot, garden heliotrope, and all heal. The growing conditions include full sun to part shade in zones 3 to 9. Valerian is a light-dependent germinator requiring moist and well-drained soils. I start my seeds inside with grow lights, and you actually get a really good yield. It's a very high germination rate, well, at least for me. So like I said, the seeds can be started indoors or directly sown in the spring after the last frost. The roots are ready to harvest in the second year, and whenever you're harvesting the roots, which is the medicinal part, the really strong smelling roots, you do it in the fall. My plants I've got going, it's probably going to be the 4th year this year, so they're going to be turbo strong when I dig them up. And of course, like I mentioned, the plant attracts cats and various pollinators as well. Known as a sedative and hypnotic, especially useful for insomnia, valerian also has anti-anxiety properties and helps with stomach issues and increases deep sleep and is an antispasmodic. I use valerian in rituals for dream incubation, even though it's reported to reduce REM sleep, which is interesting because I've never had that problem. With a long history of medicinal use, though, valerian was known to the Greeks and Romans for its ability to induce sleep, and along with dream incubation, the magical properties include love, protection, purification, and repelling negative energy. So, in the next section, we're going to be talking about dream deities, a ritual, and creating a dream garden. So, while you might choose your own patron or patroness of dreams, I've chosen the deities most known to be associated with dreams, along with some lesser known entities to mix it up a bit. We'll also be discussing ritual and how you can invoke or incubate dreams using herbs and plants of your choice. from the guide I've created. We'll also explore how you can create your own dream garden using the guide and the information shared previously, as well as some suggested recipes for encouraging a good night's sleep and interesting dreams. But for now, let's focus on the dream deities. The Onoroi in ancient Greece were all about dreams, and it includes a family of deities most noted for being associated with dreams, which includes Morpheus, for dreams, of course, and for fantasy, Phantasus, and Phobetor was for nightmares. The sons of Hypnos, the god of sleep, and Pasithea, the goddess of hallucinations and relaxation, etc. They were also known as dark-winged spirits who brought different kinds of dreams to humans. The god of dreams and the leader of the Onoroi is the most well-known deity associated with dreams. Appearing in human form, Morpheus brought messages from the gods to kings, and he was also called the Fashioner, due to his ability to project himself in any kind of humanoid variation. Often depicted with wings, Morpheus was said to live in a cave with his father, Hypnos, and his brothers, Phobetor and Phantasus, on the island of Lemnos by the river of oblivion and forgetfulness called Lethe. When Morpheus leaves the cave with his brothers to bring dreams to humans, they pass through one of two gates. One of them is made from horn, and it's the source of prophetic dreams, while the other is made from ivory and issues dreams with no meaning. Some say that while Morpheus travels using his wings, his brothers transform into bats when taking flight. So Phobetor, who is essentially the god of nightmares, was also known as the Frightener, and he appears as monsters and beasts, especially snakes, although snakes have attributes representing psychic power, sexuality, and eternity. Playing on the dreamer's greatest fears, forcing them to face their fears, which can be a good thing, Phobetor is also associated with the transition from dreams to reality, which is interesting to note for those like myself who deal with sleep paralysis. The word phobia was inspired by his name. Phantasus, also known as Phantasos, the deity governs unreal dreams. However, he represents inanimate objects as symbols, whether in nature or man-made. Phantasus also brings fantasy, which is a word derived from his name, and good dreams that can be surreal, which is the opposite to Phobetor. Sometimes he rules over confusing and cryptic dreams that include puns and jokes. Often taking the form of a woman, Phantasus can appear as an apparition, and on occasion the dreams he brings can be deceptive, especially if your question cannot be answered now. Dreamy beverages. What better way to end the day than a warm, soothing cup of tea or moon milk to send you off into the dream world? From herbal tea to a hot chai or milky latte, you can choose the one that feels right on the night. Even a glass of mulled cider or spiced wine can be a delicious alternative, although alcohol can affect your dreaming mind. So I've got some suggested herbal teas here, a few blends to get you started. You can keep it simple with a cup of chamomile tea, or you can create a concoction of your own choosing, providing they are safely prepared with non-poisonous herbs or ingredients that may affect any medications you're taking. Sweeten with honey, maple syrup, or stevia glycerite for an extra heavenly boost. Organic is best to make sure you're not taking in any nasty pesticides and chemicals. So here's my recipe for a nice dreamy tea. So you could do black tea with jasmine and rose petals, or you could do lavender and hops, or chamomile and valerian, passion flower and skullcap, mimosa and mugwort, or lemon verbena and honeysuckle. It's up to you. You can even mix those up. I have this information on my Magic of Herbalism newsletter on Substack, which I'll also put a link to in the notes. While moon milks are a relatively new trend, people have enjoyed soothing warm milk drinks before bed for a long time, especially hot milk with nutmeg or cinnamon. Whether you enjoy chai lattes or spiced milk, why not mix it up and include tasty herbs for an infusion that's like sipping the dreamy, creamy moon? All you need is warm milk, whether regular or plant-based milk such as coconut, cashew, oat, almond or soy. Then you can either add your herbs and spices and leave it to steep in the warm milk, or warm the milk gently on the stove for a few minutes, watching carefully to make sure it doesn't boil over. Add a little sweetener as mentioned above if you like, and sprinkle with nutmeg, dried and crushed rose petals, or other herbs for a special drink to put you in a magical mood while meditating on your desired dreamy outcomes. Here are some other suggested blends: cinnamon, nutmeg and star anise, rose and strawberry, lavender and white chocolate, turmeric and black pepper for those who like a little bit of heat, jasmine and hops, passion flower and valerian or blackberry and chocolate. Note, I like to use powdered dried berries for their flavonoids and flavours, but you can blend them and swirl them into your milk too. So I'm going to go on with some more deities here. The Sandman, of course, made popular recently by Neil Gaiman. It's a fairy tale by Hans Christian Andersen, and his name was Ol Lukoji. I think I might have said that wrong, but I'm sorry. And it's based on an old Scandinavian folk tale about a character also known as the Sandman. He relates the dreams he shared with a young boy, including his method of sprinkling magic dust into the eyes of children to bring them dreams. If the children are good, he uses one of his 2 umbrellas to give them beautiful dreams, while the other is reserved for bad children, causing them to sleep without dreams. Anderson advised that the Sandman wears a silk coat that changes colour as he moves. At the end of the tale, he reveals that he is a dream god, while his brother, who has the same name, is the god of death. Another god I like to use for dream incubation is one who's not usually used for this purpose, which is an Egyptian god called Bes, B-E-S. He's an ancient Egyptian god in possession of quite a few attributes, including war, protection of women and children, sexuality and fertility. And the likeness of Bes was often carved into household items as well as furniture and beds, where his image was said to protect people from evil spirits or ghosts. After retrieving a blessed cloth from the temple, mothers would draw an image of Bes on their child's left hand and then wrap it up with the cloth to invoke pleasant dreams and chase away nightmares. Bes was also said to have inspired the Christian devil's appearance, but it serves as a reminder that looks can be deceiving and scary images are often used to scare away true evil. Another deity is a Baltic goddess of twilight and dreams. Her name is Brexta. I hope I'm saying that right too. And she protects dreamers from dusk until dawn, keeping watch over the world from sunset to sunrise. She's said to be especially present in the early morning hours prior to dawn, when great dreams are more prevalent. At sunrise, she hands the reins over to the goddess of the sun, Sol, or Soli, who rides on a chariot led by 2 horses. Brexta is a primeval goddess who has governed the night since the beginning of time, and she has seen the dreams of all living beings. So now I'm going to go on to a dream ritual, and I'm going to keep it simple here, since doing a ritual before bed can awaken the senses and prevent you from being able to fall asleep in the first place. That said, if you don't mind doing a complex ritual, you can set up an altar by your bedside with candles, your herbs of choice, and a prepared statement and invocation. During the day, think about what you want to learn, what you want to dream about, or what question you have that needs answering. This is a great way to program your mind in readiness for bedtime. When using the herbs or plants of your choice, there are a variety of ways to incorporate them in your rituals, such as crafting a dream pillow or poppet stuffed with your herbs and a stone of choice, placing a dream herb or plant that's potted on your nightstand, making a tea or beverage with herbs, non-poisonous of course, burn incense made with the herbs you've chosen, use aromatherapy with a burner or inhaler, or place the herbs in a bowl or on a plate to sniff before bedtime, or even put a few drops of lavender oil, for example, on your pillow. So now we're going to be talking about the dream garden, and whether you plan an extensive garden outdoors, an atrium, or a simple collection of potted plants, there are many ways to create a sacred space for growing a dream garden. It's important to do your research in terms of the growing conditions, spacing, if the plants are vigorous spreaders, if they're poisonous, and so on. If you're new to gardening or the propagation of plants, I like to start everything with organic seeds myself, you might consider buying the plants and arranging them in a special place, whether indoors or outdoors. Think of how you want it to look and draw a map, taking into consideration the various sizes of the plants and the aesthetics. For example, how you want it to feel when you look at it or what you want to evoke. You can also mix it up with plants in the ground and a few container plants. A pond would be lovely, since water is the element of the subconscious and emotions, and it might be more economical and less time-consuming to include an ornate bird bath. Surrounding the plants with relevant gemstones, shells and other corresponding items will give your dream garden a magical aura. So, I hope this episode has your creative juices flowing, whether planning a dream garden or a ritual to incubate dreams. Until next time, blessed be.